Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This Manga show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Alice in Borderland Season 3, Episode 2. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I want to make something I believe to be a correction from last episode. I was kind of fairly certain that this season would be adapting one of the spin-off mangas, the one in particular that's a sequel that follows Arisu looking for Usagi. Well, based on Google, so take this once again with a grain of salt. I was reading that apparently this is an original storyline. It might implement stuff from that manga or even the spin-off manga, but they're not even directly based on that. They might take elements from it, but it is an original story. So that's why I was like, I guess that's true. Like I said, I Googled a few places that said that, but like I said, I could be mistaken. So just keep that in mind. But picking up where the last episode left off, I thought was interesting because I was so curious. Like, okay, so Arisu's here, and I was like, oh, is he the only person? Because everyone else is like, oh, a game. This must be fun, and no one's taking it seriously. Like the first time through, but there's no one like what's her face? Was it Shibiki? Was that her name? The person who was there who kind of gave them the rough lay of the lands in their first game in season 1. There was no one there, even though Arisu would be that person. But once again, and this episode clarified it, it's not until partway through the game he finally remembers everything. He got fragments of it in the first episode of the season, but he doesn't remember everything. So he doesn't even remember the participating in games part of things. So this just seems like fun to everybody else. So they're just like, all right, let's go through this. They are referencing like, oh, people disappeared. How'd we get here? There's some usual rigmarole. But this particular game is about fortune. Basically, you have to draw, like, in total, 10 fortunes have to be solved. And basically, you're trying to solve a riddle. And each one is kind of a clue to solving the riddle. But it's like you basically have to survive until the end. I thought the general consensus was you have to survive all 10 rounds and then you're fine. But it's like, everything's a clue to finding the exit, essentially. And it's also about fortune and stuff like that. So, and each person can only draw one, which I think that's interesting when you think about it in the long run of things, of how the game could have played out differently. If enough people died, you'd be completely and utterly effed, because only one person can draw a fortune. And if, say, like, everyone died was someone who hadn't drawn one yet, you were actually completely effed. You would just have to like stumble your way out. Like I guess that eventually, like you would just automatically lose that round, and then things would just kind of pop off from there. But initially, it's like, okay, you have to answer a question, and they, it was like, I think, because the first one didn't have an equation or an answer. It was just kind of a fortune. It was like a really, really good luck fortune. And then they moved on. And then they draw another one, ended up being an equation. And some of the people, like Arisu, gave her the right answer because he's good with math and stuff like that. But like she went with the wrong one. And this situation is that the answer you give and the real answer, whatever the difference in number that is, you get shot with an arrow. And then she takes an arrow to the neck, and one poor bystander caught 2 arrows to the back. I'm like, oh, everyone's collateral damage in this. It's not like, oh, 3 arrows go to her specifically. It's not, no, this arena is going to be riddled with arrows. And you see that with each passing game. And these are flaming arrows too. So it's also burning up the environment. So if you're not going to die from the arrow, the burns, and the fire that's spreading, you're also going to die from like the smoke inhalation too. So it's just like every facet of this game will kill you, especially the more answers you get wrong, the more arrows being fired that you have to avoid, especially when the numbers get like the difference between answer and the answer they gave and the true answer. Because I think it's so interesting. They didn't get a single one right. But I think it's meant to be like stacked against you, because you have to have very specific knowledge to like be able to do all this. Like, for example, like Arisu's, which was the last one, was like, what's basically in billions, tell me like how many people are on Earth. And jumping ahead, he was off by 100 million. So you're just like, how would you have to rough calculate that? You are always going to probably always be off. There's no way you're going to hit that number exactly. So stuff like that. And it's just like every round, it's like dozens of arrows flying their way. Because I think the largest number before we got to Artisu's was like 448. Because they're like, oh, how much? What was it? How much blood goes into like milk or something like that for a cow? And the girl guessed 2 liters and ended up being like 450. So like 448 arrows come flying through. People getting struck with it. There's that one lady who ended up catching one to the leg, and the guy who seems to be a drug addict ended up helping her. It's like, wait, how do you know? He's like, well, basically, I'd have to get arrested every time I went to see a doctor or something like that. So you pick up a few things. So he pulled out the arrow, he tore off her jacket or like her top, and just like used that as a tourniquet. So came in clutch, especially, no proper doctor on hand. But it's like the numbers are dwindling, the place is on fire. I was like, this is, and like you almost have, Artist 2 pulls through in the end, but I would have thought whatever his question was going to be, that he'd get it right. And it's like, and like I said, I thought I was under the impression like all you have to do is survive 10 rounds. It's like, but if they didn't get out in that 10 rounds, they would have been screwed, because they also learned the hard way from a guy who tried to leave. He just opened the gates, got blasted with the laser, and died. So now they know, cool, there's no escape on that front. So they're stuck in this place. So it's the typical thing of you either die by what the game's trying to kill you with, you try to run and, get shot by the laser. So they're trapped in this situation. Like I said, you would have, like, even if like he had gotten it right, they still would have needed to find their way out while the fire's spreading after, once again, literally, it's at least 9 answers wrong, because like only like maybe the first one is the only one that didn't, and that was like this extremely good luck. I think that's the only one that didn't have a question. Everything else had a question. So especially because Artisu's ended up being the worst, because he ended up drawing the extremely bad luck. That's why his was like so unforgiving, where it's like, yeah, you have to like guess something that's stupendously like ridiculous for anyone to be able to kind of guess, in a reasonable amount. But and I love that people were like, wait, that means it's going to be 100 million arrows. They're like, no way. And I'm like, guys, well, you don't know because you don't know the innings of the inning workings of the game, but it's like, this is some supernatural shit. So of course it's going to actually be 100 million arrows. It is wild, but I did forget, like, that's any show for you. Every new season, there's going to be escalation. We saw that from season 1 to season 2, the escalation. Shit was pretty wild in season 1, but even more so in season 2. The one I think about is like, was it the King of Spades? Like, the car chase sequence is one, and then like also that was like pretty big scale, like with the traffic and stuff, but also like just the scale of last season, it was, especially because we were dealing with the big bads, the face cards. So, but once again, Artisu coming through because he remembers everything now, so he's got a different perspective on things. But that doesn't necessarily help him, but him just having the gifted mind that he does immediately pieces things together. He remembers, like, okay, the clues from everyone's pieces, and then he remembers the main guy, like the first guy who drew. Problem is he threw his away, so they can't even count on that. But like Artisu remembered, so it's like, all right, let's go in this direction. We can't go to the well; it's filled with dirt. But then Artisu remembers, it's like, right, climbing the stairs to get here was a very long way, so it's like, there has to be like a secret way to go down, because it's like what about the surface area of just like the amount of like how much we climb? There's got to be, and they ultimately end up finding a tunnel, and everyone's able to get through, except for the 3 people who had ran in the opposite direction to try and find any way out and trying to cover. And also, just like from a shot perspective, I feel like that amount of arrows puts 300 to shame. Like, especially because when it's in a far distance, it almost feels like some Stranger Things shit where you're like, yo, that looks like that's like the Mind Flayer in the distance. It looks like you're going to see like a fire-breathing monster or demon in the distance, how bright red and orangish it was. And it's getting closer, and the arrows flooding the sky like a volcano erupted, like it's pure lava raining down. And those last 3 people, sadly, no one made it over there to Artisu in time. And he jumped down in the hole. He's the last one. So they made it through. But when they get to the other side, all they see is like, oh, head in this direction for the next game. I'm like, oh, shit. I had asked this question last episode. I was like, well, we see things are kind of being approached a little bit differently. Someone was like, I wonder if the visa is still a thing. Nope. there are no more visas, no like, oh, you get to take breaks. It's like, nope, you have until tomorrow. That's when the next game starts. You have till then to get to that next game. You don't participate, you're dead. And they see in the sky like there's a giant balloon holding up the Joker card. It's the only one. So I'm almost wondering, is that kind of implying that in the time frame? At first, a lot of stuff has greater context now, but going through the episode. But initially, I was like, oh, I wonder, does that mean like when Artisu and them defeated all of the face cards last season? Does that mean like there were never any replacements? But it's been like 4 years, because even people in the group were talking about having been here for 2 years ago. We'll get to that, but. So that's why I was like, did they never replace them? But this is a very special circumstance. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. And it's kind of what I thought. It's a champions tournament. Everyone that's here right now playing the Joker version of this game are all previous winners that left and came back. Because we also, it's something I don't think I'd ever really gave much thought about in season 2 when we got to the finale was, we know for sure those two characters that we saw them again at the beginning of this season, but outside of them, we don't know how many other people decided to stay as citizens. I mean, you don't just have to be evil or whatever. You could just, or not necessarily even have to be obsessed with power to just decide to stay as civilian. Because we met some pretty cool people that ended up being, some of the face character, the face cards. So, it's not necessarily an indication of character. So there could have been some people decide to say, but like, it feels like 90% of the characters we ever met over the course of season 1 and season 2 that were still alive decided to leave. So, but I wonder, does that mean they never got approached since we haven't seen any of them, or did they get approached at some point in time in between seasons 4's ending and this, like I said, like 4 or 5 years later, like, because all the characters here are characters they never met because they played the games at different times because time works differently. But in that world, like I said, one of the characters was like, oh, this happened 2 years ago for them. So it's just such a fascinating thing. Like I said, I threw that out there, but I didn't actually really think about like, no, it'd be a game of champions. But like I said, it also makes sense considering like, you have at least Arisu and Usagi here, but I never really thought about like everyone else here beating. I didn't quite think of it in totality like that. I gave it some thought, but I never really thought about it. And no one else remembered either until they saw the Joker card and they all pulled out their respective cards and they said, we've been here before. And because obviously the thing that popped in my mind, because obviously it happened, and ended this year, was it made me immediately think of Squid Games. Once again, the bit about, especially the English dubbing of, I've played these games before. Like, I, for whatever reason, almost thought about Arisu being the one to say that. That's what immediately crossed my mind. But yeah, like, everyone's in the same boat as Arisu. They've all been here for different reasons. Like, one person, the drug guy, like, he, I think, might have just overdosed and ended up here. There's the one kid who was bullied and he tried to take his own life, but he ended up surviving. There's one person that was killed by her stalker. So, and there was even someone else who was dead, who won because Arisu won, because she was from the Shibuya meteorite incident as well. So she survived because, well, I'm sure she played her own part in surviving till the end, because she got there around the time. Well, they all ended up there because time worked differently. They were there at different points in time, supernatural, rules and stuff like that. But Arisu and his squad basically putting it all on the line to win ultimately got her back home too. So for them to all be here and be invited by the same guy, they're even kind of labeling it as like, oh, is he the Joker? Yeah, he's the only face card left because this is a very special Champions one. So like that must mean there were other face cards here, but like maybe he wanted to spice things up after all this time. The reason why he decided to like handle things now, like I said, it seems like he's the main guy running the game instead of the queen from last time. I mean, even then, we don't even know how long she was running the game because everyone became citizens is the right word, like at different points in time. So who knows like how long she was like running things as queen. I mean, because the game supersedes her. I mean, she died, and I say games kept going. You know, it's very much like the Squid Game of it all. It's too big. At least in that's a real, like, just a grounded, oh, there's too many rich and powerful people involved. In this case, it's like, no, this is something supernatural that just existed. But like I said, it feels like the rules have changed, where it used to be like, yo, this is, if you're on the verge of life and death, this was supposed to be your second chance, or potentially your second chance here at the Borderland. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, especially because he's visiting people and giving them invitations. I mean, I guess it's up to you to decide whether or not you're going to take that shot or not. Because I think it's also supposed to be this thing, your second chance that you got wasn't what you thought it was. I think even using the bully guy, for example, it's like even that situation didn't stop life from just being kind of harder and terrible in some capacity. I think it's almost meant to be that, where you come to people when they're vulnerable again and at their lowest again, and like, oh, that second chance, maybe things will be better this time around, and then they kind of didn't, and you kind of fall into this pitfall, and here he is kind of like offering you like that escape, like, you know, because some people probably took up this opportunity because they feel the thrill of it all. Maybe, you know, maybe they might not have initially remembered the thrill of it all, but maybe it just fits their personalities. Who knows? Arisu and his squad obviously got immediately to, like, you know, gathering supplies and stuff like that, and kind of the camaraderie. I did wonder why that guy with glasses had looked to that guy with the, like, definitely gave you Yakuza vibes, but he noticed the tattoo, so it's like, oh, it's supposed to imply him to be one. So they end up going to the next game. There's a team waiting. I'm like, are you going to have to fight them? But it's like, well, it's kind of a free-for-all amongst teams, because it's a zombie hunt, breaking down the rules. You have 7 cards. Basically, you end up losing all your cards before the end of the game. You die. There's the zombie squad and the human squad. The whole zombies affecting people. Shotguns kill zombies. Whether the card is on the field or whether it's still in their hand, and the vaccines can cure zombies. Like, those being like the wild cards at play was so interesting. It heavily reminds me, especially the structure of, by the end of the 20 rounds, whichever team has more people, they will survive. And so it's just about whichever team has the most people. It reminds me of, I believe it was Tag last season, was one of the face games, and it was I forget which one she was. She was the queen of, it might have been the Queen of Spades. I don't remember. Regardless, it kind of doesn't matter. But hopefully you know the game I'm referencing. But like I said, that one kind of was designed in that same capacity of whichever side had the most people by the end will survive, and everyone that was on the opposite losing team, number-wise, will all die. So, their initial plan, I think, was sound enough where it's like, hey, we'll just play with each other. That way, like, because if we spread out to the larger crowd, that's where things get complicated, because the whole thing is no one's going to want to admit that they're the zombie, because it puts them at a disadvantage. So everyone's going to keep that hush-hush, because you don't want people to know, hey, you're the zombie. That means if anyone has a shotgun, they can kill you. It's a one and done, too. So, like, you want to be able to keep that on hand. You don't want to, I mean, you immediately know, like, you killing a zombie, you're like, what, you're going to kill someone for real, too. So you don't want to be quick to do that, but you also want to be able to defend yourself. So that there's a lot there in that capacity. So, but for the most part, they were able to kind of keep it amongst themselves for a little bit, passing it back and forth. Then they got introduced to 2 characters, like, outside of their group, kind of. A woman approached Arisu, and he immediately clocks it as, oh, you're a zombie. It's like, I noticed that you and this girl were playing continuously only with each other, but now you stopped. You won't even meet me in eyes. Like, I think you're a zombie. But it's like, hey, you join our group, we'll get a vaccine and we'll cure you. Like, we need to all kind of be on the human side and whatnot. So she chose not to infect them, brought the person she was playing with too. They're trying to mitigate how many people are infected, because they want to keep as many people on the human side so they can make sure they still have, like, the numbers in the long run. They were also told by one of the guys that Arisu went up against about this being kind of like the game of champions, and the realistic nature of, well, most likely this, because it is that whatever few people survive till the end will most likely have to kill each other. It's not necessarily true, considering, like, how the game played out initially, but we are playing, things are different because they even point out the massive differences where there is no, because there are no visas and stuff like that, and you're immediately going to one game area. And even though people are like, yeah, that's not how it worked for me. You used to be able to kind of choose. You could choose whether or not to participate in certain games. Obviously, like your visa days played a massive role in whether you had much of a choice or not. But now it's like, that's not an option. You play the game or you die. There's only one game. There's only one way forward to the end. So there is no guarantee that multiple people can win this. I mean, he'd even, the guy Arisu had gone up against throws out the realistic thing of, hey, even if you do manage to find your wife, when you can get to the end of this game, you might have to kill each other. One of you will have to kill the other. Like, that is the sad tragedy of it. And Arisu had never really thought about it, especially with his memories back. He's not even thinking about too much of the end game. He's just worried about, let me find Usagi first, then I could figure out that, he is probably multitasking, thinking about, well, what will the end be? What will the Joker game be? What is our plan getting there? I just, maybe he's thinking about that. Maybe it's not even a forethought. Maybe it's not even a subconscious thought, right? No, it probably is a subconscious thought, but his main priority right now is finding Usagi and reuniting with her, Either way, while they're concocting a plan on like how they handle things going forward, we meet Ri, who, the moment we introduced her, I was like, she's got that main character energy, or very important character energy. And I was thinking, because they did the zoom into her, like when she was introduced, when she dropped her name, I was like, she's not the main character of that spin-off manga, the other one I was referencing, right? I didn't, just to avoid spoilers, just because I want to end up accidentally like spoiling something for later in the season, but I googled like Alice in Borderland manga and I put her name in. The only pictures that came up were like a whole bunch of random stuff from like the manga unrelated to this character, and then the only pictures that came up related to the character were all her from the TV show. So I was like, okay, so she's a TV show original character. I feel like I would have stumbled across something if she was even from a spin-off manga. I felt like I would have come across something. So I think she is strictly from for the TV show. So, but the thing is, and something I think Arisu isn't really considering, like, well, there might not be face cards involved in all of this, but like there are going to be disruptive, chaotic characters. Because we met a few who were just like, crazy about the games and stuff like that, and they weren't even face cards. But we also met, there were a couple face cards even sprinkled into the beach squad. There were a few, so you can't underestimate that. I mean, even though like the face cards aren't at the forefront and stuff like that, doesn't mean like the Joker doesn't have like little, like I said, chaos inducing, disruptors like sprinkled in. But there's also just chaotic characters who might remember this and kind of love the thrill of it, because it's like, well, what am I going back to? My second chance wasn't really all that, so why not kind of enjoy and get a little chaotic? Because Ri's the one who suggested the whole kind of border of like shield of trust. It's like, okay, we find a zombie. We let them know that, hey, say like this person's a zombie, but they also have a vaccine. That means I could cure you. But it's like how you get their trust is, now you know that I'm a zombie. That means my life is in your hand, that the zombies can be hostages for the humans because you can kill me at any time. So it's in our best interest to work together, type of thing. And she's like, yeah, that loop will protect us. But then comes up the question of, well, we don't know if how many vaccines there are. Probably isn't enough to cure every zombie. And she's like, yeah, sure. But like, that's why you're kind of lying, manipulating people. It's kind of the sucky thing of, you're not in a position to have to be 100% honorable. It's like the only way we're going to survive this game. So getting more and more people involved, getting more people on the human side, getting zombies to reveal themselves, as well as the people who turned them. So they start locking like the zombies in a very specific room, so they only play with each other and they're not spreading the zombie, to other people. But then one other character gets it inside of his head, like, yo, why are we doing it like this? The easiest way to handle this is just to reduce the number of zombies. And so it's like, cool, going forward, we're just going to kill, any zombies out there. Oh, we found out who turned this guy into a zombie? Well, let's just go kill him. This guy's like already here. We won't do anything about it yet, but eventually they probably will. But at the bare minimum, it's like, oh, let's, go kill any other zombies. And so they send Kazuya out there, and he does it. He does the dirty work. And, it seems like he was going to leave the Yakuza, or just well, let's not just say Yakuza, we don't know, like, could have been any other gang he was a part of, but and this other person was like, yo, we're going to get out together, and he betrayed that person and killed them. So I think it's almost that thing of, I don't deserve like redemption, and but I'm still going to make my way through, but like I'm almost looking for a place to die type of situation. So now they're also forcing people to point out the zombies on their teams or whatever, because it's like, oh, you don't even have to threaten them with a shotgun, because Kazuya, metaphorically speaking, is your shotgun just by beating the crap out of him. It's like, yo, if you're a zombie, we'll save you. You'll be vaccine priority number one, and it points him in the right direction of the zombies. But those people get irritated, and you're like, you know what? Fuck them. We're striking back. And so the guy that got beat up decided to like zombify a person on her team, and even Artisu was like, this isn't working. She's like, no, like, he's like, oh, the trust is still keeping up, but he's like, the zombies are going to like retaliate, and she's like, right, it's turning into a real game now. It's like, that's her whole purpose. She just needed to kind of get the ball running, because she's sitting by this behind the scenes laughing and enjoying living it up, but being like, yo, like, I get to have fun. Like, she's just a chaotic energy having fun. Now, she might be a master manipulator thinking like, this is just going to ensure my win, because they never bothered to check. She claimed to have like both a zombie card and a vaccine card. That could have been bullshit. You took her at her word, which, I mean, even though we're not dealing with like the different suits of the games, because we're not even dealing with like the difficulty ratings or like the style of game anymore. That's all irrelevant now. It's all Joker style, ranging various difficulties, I guess, depending on whether you can find a solution to things or not. But she feels like she'd be playing a heart game right now. It's kind of the point I'm trying to say. Like, so I'm curious to see if she actually makes it by the end, or will she end up being one of the people they take down because they find her out to be who she really is. I'm so curious to see how this plays out. Obviously, we'll see the conclusion to the game next episode. I also found out this season's a little shorter than previous seasons. Previous seasons were 8 episodes. This one is only 6. So, it's interesting to keep in mind. So, I'm interested to see how the conclusion of this game plays out and how many people end up sadly being on the losing team. Because if I remember correctly, with the tag game, like I said, if it was the Queen of Spades, if it was her, the tagger, she was the only one by the end. She was the only one on her team, and she ended up dying. Literally everyone else was on the blue team, and they ended up surviving. So she was the only one that died, I think. I could be misremembering. I don't fully remember off the top of my head. So I don't know if it's going to be a repeat of that situation. Probably not. There's probably going to be a lot of death on the zombie side of things. But like I said, we'll have to wait to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.